The issue of men competing in women's sports has become a political and social lightning rod, igniting fierce debates across the United States. At the heart of the controversy lies the question of fairness and whether allowing transgender athletes, who identify as female but were born male, to compete against biological women undermines the integrity of women's sports. This issue has deeply divided Americans, with passionate voices rising on both sides, turning school board meetings into battlegrounds and national politics into a heated arena. The debate often centers around the physical advantages that males possess, such as greater muscle mass and bone density, which some argue give them an unfair advantage over female athletes. Opponents of transgender inclusion argue that these biological differences, regardless of gender identity, create an uneven playing field that jeopardizes the hard-fought gains women have made in sports over decades. They point to instances where transgender athletes have dominated women's competitions, raising concerns about fairness and the potential displacement of female athletes from scholarships and competitive opportunities. Proponents of transgender inclusion counter that, excluding transgender girls and women from participating in accordance with their gender identity is discriminatory and harmful. They argue that transgender athletes deserve the same opportunities to compete and excel in their chosen sports, emphasizing the importance of inclusivity and respect for gender identity. They maintain that denying transgender individuals the right to participate in sports consistent with their gender identity sends a message of exclusion and can have detrimental effects on their mental health and well-being. The debate over men competing in women's sports is ultimately a complex and nuanced one, with no easy answers. It raises fundamental questions about fairness, equality, and the very definition of what it means to be male or female in the realm of sports. As the nation grapples with these issues, the debate is sure to continue, with far-reaching implications for athletes, educational institutions, and society as a whole. In February 2025, President Trump thrust the issue of men and women's sports into the national spotlight by signing an executive order aimed at prohibiting male participation in female sports. The order, a cornerstone of his conservative agenda, sent shockwaves through the nation and ignited a firestorm of controversy, particularly among Democrat-led states. The order mandates strict enforcement of Title IX, the federal law prohibiting sex discrimination in education programs, including athletics, and threatens to withhold federal funding from schools and athletic associations that fail to comply. The response from Democrat-led states was swift and defiant. States like California, Maine, and Minnesota, known for their progressive policies on LGBTQ+ rights, immediately pushed back against the executive order, vowing to uphold their state laws that protect transgender rights, including the right of transgender students to participate in sports consistent with their gender identity. These states argue that the executive order is discriminatory and harmful to transgender youth, and they have vowed to fight it in court. The clash between the federal government and these Democrat-led states highlights the deep partisan divide on this issue. While the Trump administration and its supporters argue that the executive order is necessary to protect the integrity of women's sports, opponents view it as a politically motivated attack on transgender rights. The legal battles that are sure to ensue will have far-reaching consequences, potentially setting a precedent for how transgender rights are protected at the state and federal levels. The executive order has also sparked protests and demonstrations across the country, with supporters and opponents of the measure facing off in the streets and online. The issue has become a rallying cry for both sides of the political spectrum, further deepening the political divide in an already polarized nation. The battle over men and women's sports is far from over, and its outcome will have a profound impact on the lives of transgender athletes and the future of women's sports in America. The issue of men competing in women's sports has deeply divided the American public, reflecting the nation's broader polarization on issues of gender identity and LGBTQ+ rights. Public opinion polls paint a mixed picture, with some surveys showing majority support for transgender athletes' right to compete according to their gender identity, while others reveal significant opposition, particularly among older generations and conservative demographics. A 2024 Pew Research Center poll found that 58% of Americans believe transgender athletes should be allowed to compete on teams that match their gender identity, while 39% oppose this view. However, the same poll revealed a stark partisan divide, with 82% of Democrats and only 31% of Republicans supporting transgender inclusion in sports. These findings highlight the highly politicized nature of the issue and the challenges in finding common ground. The debate over men and women's sports has also become a focal point in recent elections, with candidates from both parties using the issue to mobilize their base and attack their opponents. The 2024 presidential election saw the issue take center stage, with then-candidate Trump making his opposition to transgender athletes competing in women's sports a key plank of his campaign platform. This strategy resonated with his conservative base and likely contributed to his victory in several key swing states. The division in public opinion is also evident in the heated debates playing out on social media, in classrooms, and around dinner tables across the country. The issue has become a lightning rod for discussions about fairness, equality, and the very definition of what it means to be male or female. As the debate rages on, it is clear that finding a solution that balances the rights of transgender athletes with the concerns of those who believe in protecting the integrity of women's sports will require empathy, understanding, and a willingness to engage in respectful dialogue. Please hit the like button to help spread the news so that algorithms can spread it on the web. The abstract debates surrounding men's participation in women's sports often become intensely real and personal when viewed through the lens of specific cases. One such case, which garnered significant media attention and ignited fierce passions on both sides of the issue, involved transgender runner Nathaniel Morin. In February 2024, Morin, who had undergone medical transition, won a women's 5K race, sparking controversy and highlighting the complex questions surrounding fairness and inclusion in sports. Morin's victory was met with mixed reactions. Supporters celebrated the victory as a triumph for transgender athletes and a testament to the importance of inclusion in sports. They argued that Morin, having met the requirements for transgender athletes set by the sport's governing body, deserved to compete according to her gender identity, and that her victory should be celebrated as a sign of progress. However, critics argued that Morin's win raised concerns about fairness and the potential for male athletes, even those who identify as transgender, to have an unfair advantage over their female competitors. They pointed out that Morin would have placed 10th in the men's category, suggesting a competitive advantage in the women's race. This case ignited a national debate about the role of biology in sports and the challenges of balancing inclusion with fairness. The Morin case, along with other high-profile instances of transgender athletes competing in women's sports, has fueled the fire of an already contentious debate. These real-life stories bring the abstract arguments to life, forcing society to confront the complex and often uncomfortable realities of navigating gender identity in the context of competitive sports. As the debate continues, it is essential to approach these individual stories with sensitivity and empathy, recognizing the human impact of policy decisions and the importance of finding solutions that respect the dignity and rights of all involved. Please like and subscribe, and most importantly, share and comment below on this important video.